So, we continue with our Bojjhanga. Now, in the more traditional discourse, when you go through the Bojjhangas, you go through the different ways where you can bring out these factors of enlightenment. For example, the mindfulness factor of enlightenment, to arouse it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After that, the investigation enlightenment factor, 1, 2, 3, 4. Like that. No, you can read all about it. I'm not going to go through that. Also, it generally talks about the conditions around each factor, and so it is Dhammanupassana. But it is put in a very practical way so that people can know some ways of going about it. What we are doing is talking about is more of as it occurs in our meditation as an object, and as all the conditions that occur around it. We have sort of gone through the mindfulness, investigation, Dhamma, energy and joy. Have we done with joy? Then we talk about this, the next one, Passaddhi, which is translated as tranquility. Difficult to translate this word. Rob, what would you use? Any other suggestion? You are a Pali scholar? Any Pali scholar here? Petro Konakaya. Okay, we settle with tranquility. But it needs some explanation. I've always wondered about this. Example, Passaddhi is described as if it's the ease of the mind and mental factors. It's compared to somebody resting under a tree. I don't quite get it. So I settle with my own definition. It's called Vipassana and Abhidhamma DIY. Chinese we say kakilai. Because it identifies itself with certain mental states. Kaya lahuta, chitta lahuta, passaddhi, chitta passaddhi, and all these things, this part of these wholesome mental factors. They come in a group. Tranquility, then you have this lightness, softness, malleability, efficiency, and so on, all of them. So generally, then you can get an idea of what it's talking about. When you have all these mental factors grouped together, the mind is a good state of mind, and it is light, it is agile, it is flexible, it is it's quite a happy state. It's like a consciousness which is in a very good state to develop into higher states. Just like if you work with clay. Anybody works with clay? Or anybody works with pasta? Lisa, can you make good pasta? Nobody. Jenny, do you make good pasta? Of course. How do you know pasta is good? It's a kind of softness, you can feel it. No? It's not too dry, it's not too wet, it's not too hard, it's not too soft. Then you can make any type of pasta you want. Make it like worms, like the fusilli, worms. Then you have the fafala, the one that looks like butterflies. The one that looks like little ears. Then there's one that looks like spiders, tarantula. And there's one that looks like scorpion. And there's one that looks like frogs. If you have not seen that in Italy, that means the Italians are not creative enough. And if you can do that, I'm sure you can make a lot of money in Italy. So that's generally what this mental state is like. But because of, it is a wholesome state, we emphasize on things like tranquility and lightness rather than heaviness. In the same way, the Buddha did give the example of the gold refiner. In the discourse, the Buddha gives the example of gold ore, the raw gold ore, and finally he refined it of all the impurities. And when it's really pure gold, then it is very flexible and malleable, and then you can make it all different types of ornaments. And what would you make with it? Any jeweler here? Walter, are you a jeweler? Who else think is a jeweler? Florence, you're not a jeweler? Yeah, you're a jeweler. So what do you make? You make earrings? Would you make earrings, Piero? I would make a Buddha image. Very small Buddha, which you have to look through a microscope. Yes, I've seen one like that. Jokes aside, I was in Sri Lanka in one of those temples. There were all sorts of Buddhas there, big Buddhas, small Buddhas. I was fascinated. It's in Colombo, so they have money there. They even have an elephant there. So there was one Buddha image was very small, so they have to put a big magnifying glass or something like that on it so that you can see on that small little Buddha there. The Thais are also very good making small Buddhas, but very refined. And to tell you, today a miracle happened. Suddenly there appeared that small little amulet, so small. I don't know from where it appeared on my bed, because as far as my memory goes, my elephant memory goes, I never could think of such an image. I never could have bought such an image. I don't know how it came, why it came, but it came. You believe me? I think it is possible, because personally I've witnessed things appear from nothingness. Because the temple I stay is very strange. Even at that place, I saw a mouse, a shrew, appeared out of nowhere. Something like a mouse, but the nose is... I heard of the Shakespearean work, The Taming of the Shrew. It's like a mouse. It's like the nose is different. Nose there, and it comes out a bit like many holes in it. It's a bit like the mole, the one that comes from the ground. But it's so small. I was sitting there doing interview with somebody. I was facing the bed. And suddenly, boom! There was the shrew there. I started running about. Am I mad? Mindful all the time. So you see, there are things that happen which cannot be explained by science. Anyway, we come back to this. So because of that good quality of material, you can make very small and very fine things out of it. So to bring about this as an enlightenment factor, it's not just as a base of wholesomeness, but because of its flexibility, lightness and all those, it can be what you call refined into a enlightenment factor, then it becomes a very much important part of the wisdom faculty. Of course, if you have a sensor to sense certain things, you must be very sensitive and very fine. If you have to sense fine things. And in terms of the three universal characteristics, the impermanence and so on is very fast. And also the oppressiveness can be very strong, so it has to be also very powerful. And because it has to be anatta, it can change according to so many conditions. So the mind must be able to adapt to understand those conditions. So this is often a underestimated quality or enlightenment factor. Because in vipassana, the mind must be open enough to be able to accept or to see things that you never expect. There are certain people who are very structured. 1 is 1, 2 is 2. They are squares. There's a square. Vipassana doesn't work that way. At some point, you have to be very open. So they have this tranquility, enlightenment factor. Then you have the next one is the samadhi, concentration, enlightenment factor. Well, concentration, you don't know all about it. Just the different levels of concentration, we won't have to go into all the detail. Generally, concentration means fixation to an object. Just like you can hold your mind to the rising, falling for long enough, then you have a durable concentration. You can stay with the object for extended period of time. The other one is strong concentration. When the fixation is very strong, that means even if it be a short while, nothing can shake it. Just like when you're holding on to your wallet and the robber can give me your money. No. Give me or else I'll kill you. The robber will say, give me or else I will kill you. Then he says, kill my wife first. Kill the wife? Okay, if you don't give me, I'll kill you as well. No! Then he kills him. This is strong concentration. So in this case, not only concentration is wrong concentration. We must be careful of wrong concentration. So what you need is mindfulness. You have mindfulness, then you have at least not the wrong concentration, you have inverted commas, right concentration. So you have the ordinary types of concentration, like ability to concentrate on your studies or your work. When you meditate, then the concentration becomes more stronger. In samatha, the concentration on the object. When you concentrate on object like breath or like visualization or mantra. They don't forget everything. Nothing is important. Nothing exists. I just hold on to it. So when you can do that, the concentration becomes very strong. Yeah. But if you don't have mindfulness, also you end up with wrong concentration. But what you develop to is vipassana concentration. And so when you concentration on your vipassana, the vipassana already changes, rising, falling, pain come, pain go. And so the object is like a flowing process. So it is called momentary concentration. Object arises and passes away, moment to moment. And the concentration follows it likewise, moment to moment. When you can maintain this concentration and your mindfulness is strong enough, the insight is strong enough, then it becomes enlightenment factors. And it becomes the actual right concentration of the Eightfold Path, because that will take you to Nibbana. So there's this right concentration, which is an enlightenment factor. The interesting part is that the object is firstly non-self and changing, and can be pretty oppressive. It is always changing moment to moment. People wonder, how can you be concentrated on the changing object and the moving object, rising and passing away object? Of course you can, and the concentration can be quite strong until you forget everything else. For example, take something very gross. Squash. Play squash, Sandra? No? Anybody here play squash? You go squash. Anna, you play squash. No wonder you're so thin. Anybody wants to lose weight, you just look at her and you play squash. Do you have to concentrate when you play squash? Why? Because if you don't, you'll knock your own head, right? It is a dangerous game. They have to pay high insurance for that. Do you have to pay high insurance, Anna? No, because we didn't tell them. That needs very strong concentration because the movement is very fast. So, but when you do vipassana, you're not moving, so the concentration can be fast, it can be stronger. But the change can be faster than the squash. So the mind has to be very concentrated even though the object is changing, especially when the object becomes very fine. The enlightenment factor is necessary because first you have to look into the real nature of the object. When you want to know what is it, you have to look carefully. But this is a special case because it's moving very fast. And what makes it even more difficult is disappearing all the time. So the moment you see it disappear, so what are you supposed to see? You see the disappearance. And you see the disappearance like nothing. That is what your conceptual mind thinks. But the experiential mind can go beyond that. It's going beyond what the person normally experiences, which is a kind of transcendence. So the mindfulness and the concentration is transcendental, because the three characteristics I've mentioned before is actually just the characteristics. Because when you talk of impermanence, all those things, you're using concepts. When you think about it, it's also using concepts. But it's a concept which has some reality behind it. So when you really go to the reality, it is the experiential knowledge. So it disappears. The object disappears, your mind disappears. So what have you? Nothing. Of course there's something you can't see. So that means you have to train some more. It's like following the mouse. This is a special mouse. First it runs very fast. Have you heard of Mighty Mouse? So you fight and save all those mini mouses and you punch the cat. So this mouse moves very fast and it gets smaller and smaller. You chase it. No more. And so after a while it comes back. You can't catch me. You chase after. But you can follow it for a longer time. And it comes back again. Vipassana is something like that. So what the idea is to keep on the training, to take it as a training. Vipassana concentration. And of course, suffering, And this we talk about a bit later when we talk about Four Noble Truths. Then we come to this equanimity. Well, equanimity is, what is equanimity? Different types of equanimity. The Visuddhimagga talks about 10 types of equanimity. We're not going to go through all that. We talk about Bojjhanga Upekkha, because we're talking of enlightenment factor. Then the equanimity that brings about or is part of this insight of wisdom faculty. Generally when you say equanimity, it means a very balanced state of mind. Because of this, it's also responsible for like equanimous or indifferent feeling. Or you say equanimity of energy. This refers to energy is balanced. These are not strictly bojjhangas. Then you have this equanimity of Brahma Viharas. Means how we are very balanced in terms of relationship to people and beings. Again, this is not an enlightenment factor, but the mental state is responsible for it. So how is it as an enlightenment factor? How does equanimity come about? It comes about through mindfulness, of course. When you're mindful, your mind is not disturbed. You can see everything clearly. So when you can see everything clearly, with a balanced mind, there are good chance of understanding arising. Take for example, you are the justice of Piacenza. So you sit there, then you have two lawyers. One is who? One is Elena Gogelova, another one is Power Scapa. So they argue about what? There's this case about what you call, who has the right to the child. So of course Elena Gogelova is fighting for the mother and Power Scapa is fighting for the father. Or should it be the other way? There's another important consideration besides sexual differences. Payment. So there was this blah blah blah, scream, you did so many bad things, I did, you did not. Very emotional. So if the judge becomes emotional, then of course he cannot think properly. So he must be somebody like Confucius or like what you call the Solomon. So after that, with a clear equanimous mind, he can judge better. Like Solomon, he said, okay, I chopped the baby into half. You can take the head and you can take the leg. Of course, the mother started crying, you can't do that. So he gave it to that lady. But we don't really know if it's that lady or not, no? Maybe it's the other one is the mother, but she doesn't like the baby. But at least that one would take care of the baby. So equanimity is important. But this does not mean it's an enlightenment factor. So it must be that is equanimous, mindfulness must be strong enough to get at least the first insight. And then the process develops. Because equanimity here refers to an equanimity that is developed with insight. So when you're able to see nama rupa, you can see non-self, then you can be more equanimous with all the formations. Why? Because it's more detached. Yeah? This equanimity of formations is not the same as the Sankhara Upeka Jnana. That is the 11th insight knowledge. The one is very more developed because the insight all the way has been developed to a peak, and so it's very detached and very equanimous in terms of, because of the deep insight. But one thing is clear, that when first thing is the object is on formations in terms of the three universal characteristics, and so this is a very subtle object connected with conditioning. To be able to see through that, one has to have the mind must be very balanced, like a water that is no waves and very clear, and in that state the concentration can really become deep. And so you can see the part played by the equanimity in the bojjhanga, as a bojjhanga. Now at this point you can also talk about this some bojjhangas as it occurs in a series one after another. You see, as we said, the first key, the two are the key factors. And as these two factors develop one by one, it is being developed and play a bigger part. And finally, in a very developed state, the equanimity part what you call plays its part. And the Visuddhimagga talks of one more thing. This can be a play. If you consider there are two sides of it. One more involved with energy, the other more involved with concentration, and so is involved with the balancing of faculties as well. The last three, tranquility, concentration and equanimity, is more towards the concentration faculty, towards concentration. And the other three, which is Dhamma Vichaya, investigation, joy and energy, are more towards the energy side. So the mindfulness is the balancing. So there is this So it's got this management, this management of the control of the mind. And there is this balance involved as the faculties are being worked out. And it's also slowly drawn deeper into a developed state of equanimity. And this is being done as the processes and observation all going on. Okay, we stop here with Bojjhangas for the time being. Now we go to the last part, the Four Noble Truths. Well, the Four Noble Truths, the truth of suffering, of cause of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the way that leads to the cessation of suffering. This is what they call one of the root teachings of the Buddha that occurs throughout all his teaching. It can also be considered like a compass of your spiritual practice. It's a very simple compass. Like it says, this is the way to suffering. This is the way to peace. Knowing thus, which way do you want to go? This way, you want to go this way, craving. This way is the Noble Eightfold Path. So what's the Noble Eightfold Path? You have this right view, right thought, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right energy, right mindfulness, right concentration. In this way, this is also the summary of the whole practice. So, like in the first discourse, they said suffering is that which has to be learned. The cause, craving and delusion, has to be abandoned, and the noble path is to be developed. And so this is the instructions itself. It's just like the four supreme efforts. So of these four, what is most important is the path. Suffering, has been there since the timeless past. So all those cravings. Nibbana has always been there, even though you don't know. But what makes the difference is the path, the mind. But again, although the noble path is the enlightened consciousness, because only when you get to the realization, then all the four become realized together. Because when you experience Nibbana, then you know this is cessation, and before that, all the samsara stuff, all suffering. And the realization is when the mind turns and becomes one with the unconditioned, and that is the noble path. And what is it that keep you away from that? All those craving and the defilements and the delusion and all that thing. So as an experiential knowledge of the Four Noble Truths, it all occurs at the moment of realization. But to explain to beginners, you have all this step by step. And so we have this divided into three main phases: morality, concentration part, and the wisdom part. So in terms of as an enlightenment factor, then it must be at least the first insight knowledge when you come to practice mindfulness and the rest with regards to understanding of dukkha. So when the practice becomes more intense, more concentration are involved. And this is of course the right concentration before. It comes about because of right mindfulness, which comes about because of right effort. This has been fortified by all those right speech, right action, right livelihood. So when this becomes powerful, then the insight develops one after another until the point where it reaches the magga phala jnana. That is the path and fruition knowledge called realization of Nibbana, the Four Noble Truths. In the second part, although insight develops, is not complete. Because there's not yet the purity of vision, purification of progress into the path is developed. That means your vision, your eyes is not complete yet. There's some little specks or blue spots down there. Suppose if my eyesight is not, I can see but not so good, there's a blind spot, not a blind spot. So when I see Alberto, I see only one of Alberto's eyes. So I may think, I recognize Alberto, but I think Alberto has only one eye. It's not complete. And so when it's complete, there's a purity of vision. So there's no doubt about it anymore. Alberto has two eyes. Not one eye, not three eyes, but two eyes. So purification of all doubts. And so, this is generally the what you call the practice in terms of the Four Noble Truths. But this is something very long. It's not so simple, because when you talk of dhammas, the dukkha includes everything, the conditioned, except the path, fruition, and nibbana. Okay? And except craving. Why? Because the craving has been put under the second noble practice, you can include under the first. Is also the culprit. But because of purpose of categorization, so it comes under the second noble truth. So that which has to be abandoned. Talia. There's a lot of cutting to do. Dasha Urubashawa, are you good with a knife? So you cut. You just don't only cut potatoes or onions or carrots, you cut defilements. So the Chinese medicine men are very good for this, because they have all these strange roots, or something like the prosciutto cutter. Here they can cut very fast. Cut. Very thin pieces. So this is what they call, you can cut all the defilements. So you have to cut smaller and smaller roots, because the first one is very thick, to saw. After that, the small one, you have to dig deep inside. You have to look for it. You cannot see it. So there's another whole story. Then there's this realization of Nibbana. That is very subtle. So you have to slowly develop from the Noble Eightfold Path, which is the basic practice of all of them, because it is that which understands what is suffering, what is the cause of suffering, and removes it, and also what is the cessation of suffering, and the path itself, the meditation, the vipassana itself. Even the first, for example, the suffering can be very subtle. First one is very gross, but is also very difficult. In fact, it's worse. This is the ordinary life suffering. Only dukkha, pain of the body and mind. This is especially difficult because you don't have much mindfulness yet. Especially somebody with a backload of traumas in the past. Before you can do anything, you have to slowly vomit out all the rubbish. What happened here? There was one time there was some group having a retreat, fasting. Then myself, Jani, all were having a big spaghetti, so sloop. And this group of people were standing like that, looking at us with a small glass of don't know what liquid. And of course, you can see they weren't pleased at all. In fact, they looked at it with a very disgusted look. And after that, they went out. Then after that, we went out and we saw somebody vomiting. It was going, wow. And then the leader, which is a lady, was patting his back. Molto bene. But you can see she wasn't smiling. She still wore the same disgusted look. The same thing happens in the first few days of the Vipassana retreat. So when you come and see me and you talk about all this woman, I say, molto bene. But I'll try not to smile. So after you meditate for some time, then you could start seeing the deeper forms of suffering, called the normal types of suffering. Normal. Backache, tired, and all that. It's also suffering. But they're quite normal. Sleepiness, we don't say as pain, but also suffering. So after that, when you get concentration and you start watching the phenomena, then of course when there's concentration, those obvious suffering is not there. But when your mindfulness is clear and sharp, then you can see these formations more clear. So if you look at them, at first it looks all right. When you look at them, something is wrong somewhere. You watch rising, falling, all so well. It doesn't stay, it disappears. And after that it comes with all sorts of strange phenomena. And so it's not the way you want it to be. You wouldn't say it's something of so heavy a suffering. It's a kind of still imperfection of formation. And this imperfection that gives rise to further imperfection. So it's a kind of dukkha. Because at that time you may not see it so much as a dukkha. But when your mindfulness and concentration becomes strong, then it becomes clearer, it is a dukkha. Except you have this nice feeling in your heart. Amore, many a splendid thing. Because I listen to these songs and I become very cynical. So But if you wash it strong, the feeling, then you see it's not so nice. It goes like that. You wash more, the more complications coming out. Because the essential essence of feeling is suffering. Viparinama dukkha. Then after that, when you go further into insight, and then you come to the sankhara dukkha, the deeper formations of impermanence. You see the incessant arising and passing away of things. See, there's a kind of suffering. Usually it is explained in terms of, it's like a very rough sea. And then when it's very rough, it's not nice. So it's suffering. Because when your concentration is strong, mindfulness is strong, every small change becomes, so is that very nice? You get seasick. That's what happens sometimes when people see that so many changes again and again, they get up, they go like that. Sometimes they get nausea. The important thing is that you see it with insight as suffering. Sometimes you see the phenomena with deeper insight, you know it's suffering. Why? Because it is suffering. There's no reason. Reason is thinking. It is as it is, suffering. Of course, when you talk of reasoning, there are conditions and so on, but the fact that conditioning is suffering. So you have to develop that type of perception strong enough, and then it cuts off. Because if you really look into it, then you can see the underlying latent tendencies of delusion, craving. Delusion is that kind of darkness, obscurity. It's invisible. Where is it? In dentro di siete. So when you see enough, the sharp knife of mindfulness and insight, dasha, cut it, then you will fracture, crash open. Then before you see your door to freedom. Then just go. Forget about Rubash, the husband. Go. Correct? You is simple. You don't have wife. Okay, stop.